Hello, welcome back to episode 3 of the L.A.M.E book club podcast. Oh, I forgot to say welcome, Lamos. Oh well, I'm gonna leave that in. This is Melissa.
I'm Ellie. What's up, Lamos?
There you go, redeeming it for me. Thank you.
Uh-huh.
Very excited because this episode we get to jump into the second book, A Court
Which
of
is
Mist
our
and Fury.
favorite.
It's tied for my favorite in this series.
You're kidding. What's your first favorite?
No,
what's
it's tied.
What's the tie?
It's tied with the last one. I really
You're
liked.
joking me.
100% serious. I really liked A Court of
I
Silver
didn't know that
Flames.
about you. That changes things.
Why does that change things?
It just changes how I feel.
Well, that's unfortunate, but it's still up there. I'm very excited to talk about this book because there's so much to unpack here.
Mm-hmm.
So with that, let's go ahead and just jump right in. This book it takes place 3 months after the last book ended. So Feyre and Tamlin are back in the spring court. And with that, Ellie, they're engaged. How are we feeling about that?
So obviously, like you said, this book takes place 3 months after they came back home. Mm-hmm. I thought that was really fast, but also kind of inevitable. Like, of course they're going to get, I don't know. I kind of was like, do they get married? So I guess that answered that from chapter 1, but I hate that we missed so much. Like they went from we're home, we're together to we're getting married. Like we didn't get the in between.
The book just starts out with like talking about them, and then all of a sudden it's like it's like I don't remember, 3rd or 4th chapter or something. It's like we're engaged and planning a wedding, and I'm just like, what? Like I remember I was annoyed that the proposal wasn't written into the story and that it didn't start with it. It wasn't like it's been 3 months and he proposed and this is where we're at, like day in the life, come with me.
And I think it's
MTV, welcome to my crib.
You're in Feyre's head for the entire first book.
Exactly.
So then to miss something that monumental, you feel like you were left out. And so you just come in.
I mean, you're
like,
still
hey,
in her head though. You're still in her head, which is another thing, which I'm like, okay, you're in her head. Why isn't she thinking about this? But I don't know. I remember being really bummed that we didn't get the proposal written in there, and that we didn't get to, as a reader and an audience, we didn't get to experience that. And it was just like already jumping into the episode, jumping into the story and the new storyline of them getting married. Mm-hmm. What did you think about the new character that they introduced in the beginning, Ianthe?
I thought it was really hard to pronounce her name.
I did too.
Of them.
I texted Ellie.
With all of them.
I texted Ellie when I was reading, because Ellie read all these before I did, and I texted every single time I read someone's name. I'd send her the name and then say, "How do you say it?"
My husband said, and will continue to say, "Anth," and I was like, "I think it's Ianthe," and he's like, "It's Anth," and I'm not changing.
Well, okay. You listened to the audiobooks though, right? So you like heard. Okay, that's what I thought. Yeah, that's why I texted you.
I read it for the first time and I said Ianthe. And then when I listened to the audiobook the second time, the narrator was saying Ianthe. So I trust that. That seems right to me.
And I'm just an idiot because of the way it's spelled. I said Ianthe.
Ianthe. That's great. Ianthe. All right.
Well, it felt different, but
so what I felt about her though from the beginning, I was like, oh, Feyre has a friend, and she seemed so helpful. She seemed like she wanted to help with the wedding. She was in the mansion. She was living there. So she's high priestess, and she made a treaty with Tamlin and his court. So she was staying there, and I guess they were like childhood friends, but she was staying there. And at first I kind of was like, is this competition? But then she was so kind to Feyre and like helping her with everything. So I liked her.
Wasn't me. Medium. Couldn't have been me. I was skeptical from the beginning. I'm like, there's absolutely no way this girl's being nice for no reason. I was very unsure of her. I remember texting you that. I'm like, watch, she's gonna end up being annoying or something. I really thought it was like she was gonna like more into Tamlin, and then was pretending
I thought they
to be
would
nice.
Maybe play it that way.
Yeah, and then like gun for wanting to be with him and like ruining their wedding or something. That was the angle that I was coming from. But the more I read, the less I thought that. Like more I read like with the story, her being in the story at least.
No, I'm the opposite. The more I read, the more I thought, okay, yeah, she might be coming for Tamlin. And then I was like,
I mean, I had that in the back of my brain, but then like, I don't want to jump too far ahead, but like, nothing was happening. She still was just there, just planning. So I'm like, okay, maybe something will happen eventually, but the longer it drew out without anything like that happening,
yeah,
the less I thought that was actually going to happen. So,
sure.
yeah.
So at this point, Rhys never came to collect payment for the bargain that he and Feyre made under the mountain. And
Yeah.
that was confusing because,
Yeah. Because he was like
again,
1 week every month, but it had been 3 months and
right.
nothing.
And then we left off in the last book where his face was all shocked and then he winnowed away. And so I was really curious. I thought they would open up the second book
That's
with,
true.
this is why he did that, but they did not mention it at all. And then they were like, and he never showed up. So I
I
was
think
like,
because they didn't, I completely forgot about that. So, well, again,
that's fair.
I know I mentioned in the last episode, I wasn't super, I didn't think too much into it in the like when it happened anyway. So that's probably
Yeah.
part of the reason.
Yeah.
But I do remember though when Feyre, because they just skipped over everything about being engaged, then when she asked him like once they get married if that would make her high lady since he's high lord,
Mm-hmm.
and he like not really, but essentially laughed in her face. I was like, that's not a stupid question from someone who doesn't
Who
know how
doesn't
things
know
work.
anything? Yeah.
I know. I'm like, don't be a jerk. Like, just
Yeah.
answer her question.
Yeah. And he's like, there's absolutely no such thing. Don't get your
Yeah.
hopes up, sweetie.
I mean, he
Sweaty.
wasn't like that, but
That's how I read
I
it.
didn't. That's not how I read it. I did read it as like, oh, you little girl, but it was more like sweet, sweet girl. That's not how things are done.
I
That's how
felt
I
like
took
he
it.
was super salty about that, like almost defending his
Yeah,
position from nothing. Like,
true.
that's not going to be you. Okay, so let's talk about the most iconic wedding. What
The
stood out to
most
you about
iconic.
it?
Honestly, the dress.
The dress. I
The
agree.
dress. I mean, I think I was so annoyed because Ianthe is like, I was grateful that she had a friend and grateful
Mm-hmm.
that someone was helping her, but it was irritating that it was so obvious that it felt like Ianthe was planning her own wedding, not Feyre's. Like she wasn't.
Sure.
I mean, granted, I know they aren't going to know each other like that well. It hadn't been that long, but you can get a sense of a person and tell when they would or wouldn't like something.
Yeah.
And she very clearly like didn't like
Well,
the
so here's my argument to
at
that.
least
And again, this
internally.
was from the perspective of, oh, she's trying to be a friend of Feyre. We didn't mention this, but Feyre was having nightmares every single night that was
That's
making
true.
her physically ill because of what happened under the mountain. She was just like depressed, had so much anxiety. She was throwing up every single night. And
Yeah.
Tamlin was like ignoring it, just kind of with the mindset of,
She'll
if
get
I
over it.
ignore it, yeah, then I'm not bringing more attention to it and she
Yeah.
won't be as nervous. Um, and so I've kind of felt like Feyre was just like a shell and
Yeah.
really not herself. So why would she want to be wedding planning? So Anthe was more like, hey, I know you're in this place. Let me just take over
I
what
guess
I
you're
got
right.
to do. So in that sense, I was like, oh, she's being nice. But then when they talked about the dress and how it was absolutely not
There's
flattering.
there's a happy medium. Like I
Yeah.
can see where Ianthe is helping because you're like you're right. Feyre like wanted absolutely nothing to do with it because she's a shell of who she was.
Yeah.
But like, okay, she doesn't want to make the decisions, but and I guess that just comes back to like she didn't really know her in the first place, so she didn't want to make the decisions, so she just assumed a lot of
Right.
these things. But I just even being like a shell of who she is, I can't imagine like someone assuming, okay, I know she's not herself right now, but this is what she would want. This
Yeah.
dress, I picture like 80s, like shiny and fluffy and bottom, what is that? Princess
Yeah.
gown, princess cut,
With the
with
like puffy sleeves.
puffy shoulders, but then it's like tight long sleeves
Yes.
and like very much embellished bodice kind of.
Uh,
That's and
with
with
like
like
the
a
80s hair. You have to
80s
like picture
hair
with that.
plus the 80s wig veil. You
Mhm.
know, the ones that like shot up in the back of the head even. Though that's exactly what
Yeah.
I pictured. And then I also pictured her it being kind of big on her because she was so skinny from just like not eating and throwing up and everything. So I
Yeah.
pictured it looking
And
even worse because it didn't fit her right.
Right. And I feel like we need to mention this too, that prior to the wedding, we've seen more of a really protective side of Tamlin where Feyre's like, hey, I just overcame all of this. Obviously, I can fend for myself. I defeated
Yeah.
like the biggest evil in Prithian. Let me live a little. And he's like, no, now that you're safe, you're going to stay safe. I'm not letting you go out. I want to take care of you. And so it's coming from a good place in his heart, but she's
I was,
feeling like caged in.
yeah. I'm going to say probably an unpopular opinion here. Tamlin didn't start to bother me as soon as I think it started to bother a lot of people. Because I
Hmm.
came from this is his trauma response too. Like,
Yeah.
Feyre went through a lot. I'm not going to sit here and say she didn't. But he also had to sit and watch her go through that. And
Yeah.
I can only imagine, especially from like a man's perspective, especially one like we know of Tamlin, he wants to just protect her and he
Right.
wants nothing but the best for her.
Yeah.
He had to just sit there and watch the absolute worst thing that's possible be done to her,
Yeah.
and in order to try and not make things worse, had to pretend like he didn't care.
No,
And so
I totally agree.
I I had a lot of empathy for him and how he responded to these things about like not wanting her to go anywhere and like wanting her to
Mhm.
do like stay next to him and or just be protected 24/7. And even though like I understand from her perspective it was smothering her, it didn't like I don't know, I understood it because like he had that in his mind. That's the only way to stop
Yeah.
from what happened to her happening again.
So I totally agree with you because I remember my friend Caitlin was here and she had read all these books before me and I looked her in the eye and I was like, if Feyre does not end up with Tamlin, I'm going to kill myself. And that was I was reading this portion of this book and I was like, I can sense that I feel like they're
Yes,
trying to drive in a wedge, but I don't care. She just literally gave up her life for him. Are they seriously going
exactly.
to, they might not work. I was like, they bet it's just a rough patch, I'm sure, because they're going to be together forever.
Well, exactly. And that's the thing too, is like it was frustrating as a reader in this part because you do like, well, I know not everyone empathized with Tamlin. I empathized with him and Feyre. Like,
Hmm.
but I also saw the harm that they were each doing to each other and their relationship
Yeah.
by trying to pretend like they were fine and like
Hmm.
trying to pretend like what happened didn't just happen and move forward without dealing with it
Right.
and or dealing it with it in their own ways. And so it was really I wanted to just I'm like reading the book and I wanted to be like, just Tamlin, you shouldn't have done that. Or Feyre, tell him what you're feeling. Like,
I know.
don't just go see someone. Like, don't just throw up at night and pretend like you're not. I don't. And like,
Have
there's
you?
no way she's clearly losing all this weight. And like, they
Yeah,
were
he
sleeping in the
sees
same
it.
bed. Like, I know he
Have
probably even
you?
wakes up and hearing it. Like, there's no way he isn't aware.
Have you seen that meme where it's like the little kid goes into the parents' room at night and it's like, I threw up.
Me as a 7-year-old standing in the doorway telling my parents, I just yeah, I've seen this. That's what I wanted her to do though. I wanted
Yeah.
her to be that little kid telling Tamlin I just threw up
I threw
because
up.
then maybe they could talk about it.
Yeah. No, and I think again, Sarah J. Maas does a really good job about
Oh
portraying
yes,
mental illness and like
she
depression and
does.
anxiety and like how it's not just a linear healing, but it's very
Yeah.
up and down. And for some people, ignoring it is the way. A lot of people I've heard say that. And for some people, they want you to ignore it, but then they really just need to talk about it. So I think
Hmm.
just she, in all her books, really portrays a lot of different types of
Yeah.
mental illnesses that get helped in
Yeah.
some way.
Yeah. Totally. And yeah,
Hmm.
this one, yeah, a lot of like honestly like PTSD like in this book, especially with all her nightmares and
Hmm.
everything and having to quite literally relive it every night. She can't rest because when she
Yeah.
closes her eyes, she relives the worst time of her life. And then when she's awake, she's always thinking about it and
Hmm.
can't sleep, which is just exasperating it, making it worse. Yeah,
Hmm.
it's hard. And I know so many people, especially like well, so many, I mean, I don't want to say especially people that have read this book because it's just so many people in general, but like I think a lot of people this is probably where they really also got hooked in the series because they can empathize with what either Tamlin, Feyre, or both of them are feeling based on
Hmm.
like different things that have happened in their lives. And so when you read things, especially like fantasy, but then it's relatable, oof, That's like,
it's a heavy hitter.
That's why SJM is MVP, because she just somehow makes these crazy concepts like feel like, oh yeah, like that's happened to me too, but obviously it hasn't. Like, no one's been under a mountain with an evil witch queen who tried to kill them and then they had to kill other, you know what I mean? Like, no one's gone through that. But I felt like I
But I
had.
relate. I get it. I can confidently say I
Exactly.
get that. No.
Exactly.
Okay, so back to the wedding then. All
I know
that
it's
leads
coming.
into Feyre walking down the aisle. And she's just
Reluctantly.
reluctantly, but like she loves Tamlin. She says it over and over, like, I love him, I do want to marry
And she
him.
doesn't
But
understand why she's feeling like that.
exactly.
Yeah.
Which again, I think is just a really neat
Beige flag.
perspective. Yeah.
Sure,
Well,
it's red.
I'd say that's like an auburn hue of a flag.
That's a Lucian colored flag right there.
So she realizes she's not emotionally or mentally ready to marry Tamlin, and she's screaming in her head for someone to in the audience to look at her and save her, and just kind of like, I can't do it, I can't do it. And then all of a sudden, Rhys shows up out of nowhere. He winnows in.
Cash in on his bargain. I thought that was so messed up.
I did too.
Reading this, I was like, it felt calculated. It felt like he knew what was happening and he waited to cash in on his bargain at the time when it would hurt both of them the most. And I also, though, slightly felt relieved just because of we knew her inner dialogue and how she was just begging for someone to really see her and really see how, like, not ignore the masks that she's wearing and of not saying anything, but like really like see how much pain I'm in. Not that she doesn't want to marry him, but just like meet me where I'm at, like desperately wanting someone to. So in that sense, like, I was glad that she kind of like, I don't want to say had a break, but like didn't have to walk down the aisle feeling like that. But I was mostly annoyed.
So Tamlin can't stop this. Can't stop him from taking her because it's their bargain.
It's a magical bargain. Yeah.
He's like, I will get you out of it. I will figure this out. But until
I also
then,
really felt
she
bad
has
for
to
Tamlin.
go. I know.
It made him look like such a loser.
Just gonna put it like that.
No, I did. All his entire like high fae from his court are all there watching him, and then some guy comes in and steals his bride, and he just has to stand there and take it like that.
Yeah.
Ugh. So then Rhys takes her. He's not gonna just winnow in and be like, I'm gonna take you. Oh, you're getting married. I'm so sorry.
My baby.
He's like, well, I'm here. This is beginning of the week. So then he takes her and they go back to the night court. So what was your first impression of the night court? And did you have any thoughts of what Rhys's intentions were at this point? Which I guess we kind of touched on already, but.
My first thought, well, she describes it as this really beautiful night setting where there's like snow-crested mountain tops and they're in this like tall, I kind of pictured it as a castle tower, but the room is completely heated even though the windows are gigantic and open and all the elements are allowed in, but it's warm in there. I'm just like, I'd love to go. But my first impression was I would actually, I think, prefer the spring court to that because I'm not about the snow and I'm not about dark.
Well, yeah, a little bit different how I pictured it. I pictured it being like this crazy cool, like modern, architecturally sound, like house in the side of a top of a mountain. Like it was like the house was coming out of the mountain, but it was towards the top, so where you could see, obviously, like see the peaks of them and the snow and everything. And I thought it was very cool how it was like magically heated so that it was like the perfect temperature and you didn't have to worry about it being cold or anything. But as far as like his intentions, I still was like questioning them because I don't know. Part of me was, like I said, part of me was a little bit relieved that she didn't have to go through with it while she was feeling like that. But then I'm like, what? Are they just gonna have to redo this? Like, when are they gonna have the wedding? She's gonna be gone for a week. Are they just gonna like plan for it, and then just like when she comes back, then they'll like start over, like Mulligan, let's redo it. I don't know. I didn't. That's what I was. I
Yeah.
wasn't so much even thinking about what I thought his intentions were. I was just like, okay, he did this because he's Rhys, but how are they going to move forward now when she gets back? She's only going to be here for a week.
Yeah. No, I absolutely thought him taking her from her wedding was intentional. And I thought it was funny that like she stayed in that wedding dress for a hot minute while she was there.
Yes.
Didn't have other clothes.
Well,
I'm like, that's embarrassing.
she didn't take any other clothes though. She didn't know that was going to happen.
Yeah.
Can you? Okay, I'm putting myself in her position. I just got taken while I was walking down the aisle at my wedding by someone who is known to be kind of an enemy, but like still is mysterious in a lot of ways to me. And I know I made this bargain because he saved my life. So I have to honor it. But at the same time, I'm a little bit relieved that I didn't have to for some
Gives you
reason. You
time.
can't really understand why. But I'm there for a
Mhm.
week and I don't have any other clothes than this obnoxious wedding dress that I didn't want to wear
That's
in the
truly
first
the
place.
most
I think
horrendous part of the whole thing.
I really think I'd be like, okay, so now that I'm here, do you have any other clothes that I could wear?
Do you have
Like that
shorts
would
and like a
probably be,
quick big tee or something?
can I borrow something? Yeah, I don't know. Do you have any t-shirts that you accidentally shrunk in the wash? I'll take one. Cuz I'm
Yeah.
like I don't know. There's so much happening though. I also think I'd probably be like way overcome with shock by because I mean it's also nighttime, right? I'm pretty sure
Yeah.
she said it was like dark and everything. I
Mhm.
also picture the house being like all of it, the interior being like dark gray, like kind of like a really cool modern gray stone is the
I don't know.
flooring.
I picture castle core. It is medieval, but at the same time, modern. A medieval modern twist. Ah, I was gonna say I'll send you a picture. I'm gonna post a
You
picture on our
can't.
story once this comes out of exactly because I've seen like Pinterest artwork of it, and I'm
Yeah.
like, exactly, it's exactly that.
Well, this is fantasy, so you're probably right. But in my head, Rhys is with it in the times and he knows
He
what's
gets it.
cool in 2023 and even though these books were written right before. But yeah, so obviously she's pissed though.
Yeah.
And kind of I mean, she kind of has to make it seem like that even if she knows it. She isn't. But similarly to when she was brought to the spring court, he tells her she's not a prisoner. Like this is just you can't like you have to stay in the night court, but
Mhm.
this is my week with you. Like
Yeah.
and she can do whatever she wants. So like go I don't know, paint. What are you gonna
So
if I'm
I
her,
thought
like
that
I'm
was
thinking, what am I
funny.
gonna do?
Yeah, because he says you're not a prisoner. But then at the same time, she's like at the tippy top of this mountain. In my mind, I don't know if I read this or
Yes.
just I'm thinking it, but
No, I
she's at
thought
the
the same
top
thing
of this
too.
mountain. What are you gonna do? Go down
Bro-
into the snow?
Learn to fly. No, I know. Yeah, same thing. You're not a prisoner. Good luck getting out though. Like that's kind of what it felt like.
Yeah. So then Rhys lets Feyre know that the bargain they made created a bond between them, and he can hear not only he heard her thoughts when she was screaming, "Save me from this wedding," and that's kind of why he calculated, "Okay, I'm gonna go get you
Mhm.
now." But also he's been woken up every night by her nightmares. So he's like, please get a grip, get a grasp, get a
Get,
grip.
get. That I think if I were her, I would be so embarrassed at that point. Like, oh,
Standing there in your wedding dress, embarrassed by your
okay.
nightmares.
It's almost like, oh, you know what it is, Ellie? I picture it. It's like Rachel in Friends. Have you seen
Mm-mm.
Friends? Oh,
Nope.
come on. There's
I
so many
know.
memes from Friends that relate to this entire series. How you've seen them, haven't you?
I have seen her in her wedding dress, but
No, I'm
that's
not.
about it.
But I
No,
mean,
like
like
Rachel in
any
her
of the
wedding
memes.
dress, yeah.
I understand, but I'm saying like any of the memes, the Akatar meeting memes from there's like I've seen personally at least 20 different scenes in Friends that completely relate to situations that have happened in the
I'm
book.
sure I have, but I'm just not I probably
Well,
skip
anyways,
past it. I'm like, I don't relate to friends.
it's also I'm not gonna sit here and promote. My sister and brother-in-law love Friends. I don't. The show's all right. It's fine, but I've seen them, so at least I know
Yeah.
what their episodes are referencing to. But I do. It's kind of like Rachel, but then she's embarrassed, like
Mhm.
because at the end, even though she's the one who left the wedding, she still didn't get married. Like the same Feyre, she's technically the one that left, even though she was taken. But then to hear like, oh my gosh, he knew. He was the only one. None of the people I was with, none of the people that know me, none of the people there knew how I was feeling. But homeboy did, and now I'm embarrassed because he actually, well, at least this is how I would feel if I was Feyre.
Yeah.
Like, he knew that I was having second thoughts.
Yeah, that would not be my finest moment. But at the same time, it's like, I don't know. I think I would be more relieved that I would have time to think about all of that at the cost of, okay, someone knew that I was doubting this, than I just got suckered into a wedding that I didn't really want to be a part of, I guess. Like I got suckered into a marriage that I was still not 100% sure about.
But felt bad for not being 100% sure about because of everything that happened. Yeah, I guess that's true. But then, and then his cousin, Morgan, but they always call her Moore, walks in. I don't know about you, maybe it's just because I'm territorial, even though she's not his. I was like, again, I'm like, okay, another girl. This girl's gonna somehow screw everything up. And because they even like describe her as being beautiful and stuff too. And I feel like anytime they describe someone as being beautiful, they end up being causing some
problem.
If they're not the main love interest, they cause some problems, at least.
But they also like immediately said they're cousins, so I was like, this would take a twist if that's the new love interest.
Out of everything that has happened, if that was the subplot, I think I wouldn't have been as surprised as some of the other things. I'm glad it, like, obviously. But.
We're gonna have to take a second from this summary. I need you to guess what's in my pocket right now that I just remembered is in here. And if you guess what's in there, I will give you $1 million.
Can I get a hint and then you jump it down from a million to 100?
Yeah, it's green.
That's not a hint.
It's the biggest hint there could be.
I know you. I'm not gonna get this. It's green.
Yeah.
And it's in your pocket and it's been there, so that means you didn't realize it was there and you just now. So it had to be something that could be like in your pocket without you noticing.
It's been there from today, like probably 3 hours now. But I forgot that it was there.
And it's green.
Mm-hmm. You have like 3 seconds.
Oh, a soy sauce packet.
A soy sauce packet.
I don't know what you had for lunch.
Not a green soy sauce packet. Green beans.
Ellie, why
I picked them from the garden, put them in my pocket, completely forgot, and now they are warm and soft.
I guess you're right. Green is the biggest hint you could have possibly given me. I should have known. I forgot that you have some land.
You should have that you're starting known that I had green beans in my pocket.
Okay, I will say, this is another side story. Soy sauce isn't that far off because as long as I've known you, high school, everything, anytime I was just telling Zeke this the other day, anytime I'd go to your house, the one thing I could count on the one thing I could count on is that there was rice ready to go in your rice maker.
There is currently rice ready to go at the exact moment we're speaking.
At any given time, I could go to your household and there could be no food in the pantry, but there would be steamed rice ready to go on the counter.
That's true. And I'm going to out you to all of our 12 listeners.
No,
get ready for
don't.
This. No, you deserve it.
Okay,
every time Melissa would come over.
Caveat this by saying I was young and I have a very poor palate.
This is probably the most disgusting thing I've ever seen in my life. Every single time Melissa came to my house, she would beeline to the rice maker,
because it was there and ready.
Grab a bowl of rice, beeline to the fridge, and put 2 condiments in the rice. Ketchup and ranch.
No, it was not. It was ranch and sriracha.
That actually makes me want to throw up. That actually made me gag.
Well, thinking about, I think ranch and sriracha and rice are, the ranch tamed the sriracha and the sriracha added a little zing to the rice.
A little zest.
But ketchup and ranch would be so disgusting.
A Western Eastern fusion.
Okay. Well, now that you've outed my disgusting, I also want to caveat, I haven't eaten this in years. This was something I did a long time ago. Now, do I have fond memories? I do. Is it something I crave? Not anymore. So let's move on. Do you think Rhys was being sincere when he told Feyre about the war and her possible new abilities?
I did think he was being sincere
Yeah.
because, well, first of all, I don't even think I cared about if he was being sincere. I was like, whoa, huge twist, because
Yeah.
all those high lords put their power into Feyre. She might have all of their abilities. I was like, that is going to be so freaking cool.
Yeah.
And
That's what I
I
was thinking
love
too.
a very strong female lead in any book. So I was all about this. I love that she went from most vulnerable to possibly most powerful.
Well, yeah, but
If she
even
can
when she
hone it
was
in.
vulnerable, she was still like strong and everything. But I
Yeah.
like that because she already had that fire in her spirit to
Mm-hmm.
now then have like actual strength and power to back it
Matching
up.
abilities, yeah.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah,
I like that
I
too.
was really
I
excited.
really did think he was being sincere though, because through this point in the book, other than snatching her when she was walking down the aisle, everything he did, I was like, why are you being nice? What's in it for you? That's kind of
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
what I had, like, what are you gonna get out of this? But like I couldn't, I was waiting for the shoe to drop, but
Mhm.
I mean, he just, until that happened, he was just being nice, even though he still made like really snarky comments and like flirty comments, which I didn't also hate those, those flirty comments. I'm not gonna lie, especially with how they like describe him in the book. If he's the
Mhm.
most attractive man she's ever seen, and then he's
Yeah.
flirting with her,
Yeah.
yeah, I can get
Um,
down with it.
Also something we need to mention is that when he told her, like, "Hey, your
Oh
nightmares are
yeah,
waking me up," he essentially said, "You could control this if you learn how to shield your mind." And
hey,
we
stop waking me up, figure this
yeah.
out.
Um, and so while she's at the night court, he was like, "Hey, why don't you practice shielding your mind and also learn how to read?" And so he
And
provided
also
her
while
the
you're at it,
tools.
yeah,
Yeah.
I did think it was kind of cute that like she got really embarrassed, obviously, when I mean he
Yeah.
knows that she can't read or write, and I would be embarrassed too as a 18, 19-year-old having someone who's not only 500 years older, at least 500 years older than me. Like
Mhm.
I would feel really embarrassed about that, but I love that the what he used to get her to read and write. He would write his like Rhys is the most powerful being. Rhys is the most attractive man. Rhys, like that's like
Yeah.
the sentences he would use to like try and teach her.
Yeah.
Everything.
I thought it was
So that was
funny.
funny.
And so then Reese asks Feyre to find out ultimately when she goes back if Tamlin is going to fight with the Night Court if
Yeah.
war makes it to Prithian. And so, um, yeah, then she goes back, and Tamlin
Did you
and
think that she
Lucian
actually was gonna do that though? Like
like
based on that
ask.
first week? No, yeah, like based on that first week she spent with him, did you when he asked her if she would essentially spy for him? I mean, that's ultimately what he was asking. Um, did you think that she would actually like follow through with that?
I kind of didn't see it spying because he really said like ask them if they would fight. So it was more just hey, be upfront about this. Because
Yeah,
the
but
thing about Reese is
it still kind of felt like spying though. Even though I know he's saying be upfront and ask him, but it's still
kind of
like
manipulative. Like
I'm
hey,
thinking from like how Tamlin would take it as like, hey, she only spent 1 week with this guy and she's already coming back and like second guessing me and like being his messenger and like asking things of him.
sure, yeah,
That would feel like a spy to him. So I think that's kind
yeah,
of what I was thinking at least.
yeah. I didn't,
Anyways, I
but
cut you off. Okay. I wasn't sure. I didn't know if she'd be
yeah.
like, yeah, okay, and then turn around and be like, not like because she's still gonna have to keep coming back here too. So might as
Right.
well, I guess, do what he's asking.
So then Feyre goes back to Tamlin and Lucian, and they immediately start to interrogate her. And Tamlin's overprotective self really starts
Yeah.
to come out after that. Do you think that Tamlin and Lucian should have handled things differently?
Oh yes, 100%. This is
Mhm.
this is the point where I like I started to lose the sympathy that I had for Tamlin
Okay.
because like I get it. Like again, like trauma response. Everyone responds differently. And like I
Hmm.
would if I wanted to protect someone that I love, like the easiest way for me to think to do it would be to like keep them away from everything.
Right.
But when he started to second guess her motives that and like really like trying to get tons of information out of her and like why are you like you know what I mean because like he's wanting to break the bond and she's just like well, you know what? This is what we have to deal with. And then he's kind of taking that as like a, well, I want to be with him. And then he's like starting to spiral, and like
Exactly, yeah.
he's starting to like make up things that aren't true and twisting her words into and believing something that's like not happening. And
Mm-hmm.
so that's when I wanted to be like, take a step back, dude, and
Yeah.
like realize
Well,
what like just ask. Like, this is the lack of communication between the two of them. It's like
yeah.
absolutely drove me crazy. I'm like, just sit down and talk about things. Like,
Yeah.
just be like, this is how it made me feel. That's all you
Which
have to say.
I think is important because I felt like it was an intentional lack of communication. Like she
Yeah,
just didn't want to open this can of worms up, and he didn't
didn't
either.
want to hear it.
But
Well, he
the
didn't want to hear it
trope
either.
that I absolutely hate in books is miscommunication. When it's so easy to
Yeah,
just be like, "Hey, this is what happened. Actually, you got it wrong," and then they don't say that, and it just like spirals out. I liked that this wasn't so much miscommunication as they both were just dealing with things and thought this is the right way to handle this. I just won't say anything, and then same on the other side.
yeah.
Um,
The trope that I hate in real life is also miscommunication.
I get that. So, yeah, I was pretty upset when she essentially said, "Hey, Rhys told me that there's a war coming. Is there?" And he's like, "You don't have to worry. You don't have to worry about that."
Yeah.
And I'm
I
like,
know. Just like, "No, no, no, it's fine. Just go over there."
"Yeah,
And kind of even when cuz like Reese is the one who brought up the fact that she might have all these powers and like is offering to help her like train and hone them and learn how to use them. And then when she goes back to the spring court, she asked Tamlin if he would do the same thing. And
mhm.
like or if she could like and he was like, "No, it's a liability. Like
Yeah, if he
don't."
would train her." Right. And I'm
Yeah.
like,
That like what's the harm?
she
Like
could
other
be
than
so powerful, but he's like, once you use those powers, then like word will spread, or
yeah, and
I guess
again,
like
like
everyone will
I I
know.
I get his thought process, but I'm thinking if you want to really protect her,
Hmm.
there's absolutely no way you're going to be able to do that 100%. So she might as well. The
Learn
best
to
chance
protect
she
herself.
has is like I'm picture myself as him. You do what you can, but then the worst case scenario and what you do isn't enough. At least at
Hmm.
that point, she knows enough to be able to defend
Right.
herself the rest of the way. Like so that was also like the biggest thing to me. I'm like, this makes zero sense why she
Yeah.
shouldn't know how to also. But I
Yeah.
guess they're starting to portray him as like a controlling and unknowingly manipulative
Yeah. So,
character, and this is something like if he can't control her then he'll lose her. So I like
mhm.
yeah.
So this happens a couple more times because again, Reese comes a month later, takes Feyre
Yeah.
back for a week, and same exact process. She comes back and Tamlin and Lucian interrogate her. But here's the thing is, so she's telling Tamlin, I want to learn and train with these powers that I might have. I think she's even starting to realize that she has powers because I think, yeah,
Yeah.
she was frustrated with Tamlin, and in frustration she ultimately like enters Lucian's mind and realizes she
Mhm.
has the same powers that Rhys has to read
Yeah.
minds and be in people's brain and manipulate them.
Yeah.
um and she does that because she's saying like, Lucian, stand up for yourself, and like then enters his
Yeah.
mind. And so do you think Lucian of his own accord should have stood up for her more?
Gosh, I don't know. I mean, I want to say yes ultimately cuz
Hmm.
he is the closest to the two of them outside of each other to
Yeah.
see like what's going on, and he has a pretty good read on people. So like I think if I were there, like I'd be like, there's no way that Lucian doesn't know how I'm feeling. Like if I were Feyre, because
Right.
like he can read her, like
Well,
and he can
everyone
read
can
Tamlin.
see she's getting skinnier. She's looking
Yeah.
more like pitiful.
So
And
I want to say yes, but I'm also like, that's not his character isn't there yet. Like his character isn't. His character's gone through so much,
yeah.
like growing up and everything that he only has the strength to take care of himself at this point. Like
Hmm.
he doesn't have the mental capability or anything to take care of anyone else too.
Yeah.
Even though he cares for Tamlin and her and loves her and stuff, but so like yes, I think he should have, but I'm not surprised that he didn't either.
Hmm.
What about you?
Yeah. I think he absolutely should have. I think when you see someone who is so desperately needing help, you absolutely should step in. But I don't think Lucian had the capability to do so. I think he was obviously weaker than Tamlin because Tamlin's
Yeah,
High Lord. He doesn't have the authority because he's not from the Spring Court.
yeah,
And ultimately he's kind of like Tamlin's henchman, like his second in command. So he doesn't have the authority
Yeah.
to do anything. And so I think he did his best as far as just being like, hey, I don't think this is right. And Tamlin's like, it is what I make it. And so
Yeah.
he
Yeah.
tried.
He didn't want to he just assuming he's gonna get shut down. But
Yeah.
well, okay, so leading into probably the most pivotal scene in this book,
I say there's
when
3. I
this
think
is one
that yeah, the first one's the wedding, the second one is this, and then the third comes in the next episode. So keep
yeah.
listening.
Well, pivotal. I think this is the most pivotal one of the
Yeah.
3. Like, there's 3 main big ones, but in my opinion, this is, like, what really shifts the story.
Mhm.
So, when Tamlin locks Feyre in the house, why do you think that messed with her as bad as it did?
So he did that because she was like, I need to get out. You said you would be better. You said I could
Yeah.
go with you places. And he was like, not this. Bye. And
Yeah.
locks her in. And so she's flooded with memories of being locked under the mountain.
Mhm.
And I'm like, guy, why would you do that? You already know what she just went through. And he doesn't care. He's
But he's
just
not
like, okay,
thinking.
bye.
Yeah. Well, it's not that I don't think it's not that he didn't care. I think it's just he's so consumed with the thought that he has to protect her that he's not thinking about, okay, I have to protect her, not how
Hmm.
is this going to make her feel. And
Yeah.
like that's I think it was cuz he obviously cares about her. Like that I don't think that like thought of him caring isn't the issue. It's that he cares too much in a bad way.
I flip flop. Some days I'm like, I can see it because he's loving her the best that he knows how to do it.
Yeah.
But then I'm like, but you should know better. Like, you don't treat people like that. So
Yeah, but you only know what you
I'm this way
know.
and that way. So Feyre becomes this like giant, dark, I don't even want to say shell. It's like I don't know. She just becomes like a ball of darkness because she's
Yeah.
hyperventilating. She's freaking out and she's like
It's like
screaming that
causing
she wants to be
disruption
let out.
outside of her body though too, right?
Yeah, like it
Yeah.
literally is shadows surrounding her.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden, hands, lift her up and take her out of the house. And we find out that that's Morgan. And she takes Feyre to Rhys, and they
Mhm.
pretty much save her from that situation.
Yeah.
Um,
I
so
was
then,
when that happened, like I felt like it messed with her as bad as it did because it just kept it like obviously like you said brought up like the PTSD of being locked under their mountain, but I think it
mhm,
was even on top of that too. It was more of the I was stuck in the mortal lands because of my family's status. Like couldn't get
mhm,
out, couldn't I can never go beyond where we're at. Can only
mhm,
survive. And then now she has like that survival mentality except with trauma on top of it. And
yeah,
it's just like this is the mental health aspect of just like it's eating her alive and she just cannot take it anymore and this is like
right,
the straw that broke the camel's back of like
yeah,
I'm never going to get out of this house just like I can never get out of my head too.
yeah, for sure. Um, So they take her to Valaris, and this is the first time Valaris is mentioned, and this is
Yep.
where the books truly stole my heart.
Mhm.
I was so inspired by this. I absolutely loved it. So Valaris is the city of dreams, right? That's how they describe it.
Mhm. Yeah.
And it's basically like the alter ego of the Night Court. It was a city that's completely secret to
Mhm.
everyone in Prithian except those who live in it. Even from the Night Court, they don't know anything about it. It's a city untouched by Amarantha because it has stayed a secret since the beginning of its origin.
Yeah.
And it's essentially just this beautiful rainbow nighttime starry looking city where everyone
Mhm.
is so kind and so happy and it's beautiful and whew,
Yeah.
I just loved it.
Yeah, no, I liked the drastic difference between the and like in the book they call what Prithian sees as the night court, they call that the court of nightmares.
Mhm.
And then this is the court like court of dreams, city of dreams.
No, okay, wait, real quick. I gotta do an Ellie messed up because I saw in my note here. It's the city of starlight,
Thank
not
you.
the
I knew
city of dreams.
that's also an Ellie messed up because I knew the city of dreams didn't sound right, but I couldn't remember exactly what it was. What
No,
it
this
was.
is like a half point for you mess up too because you were like, mm-hmm. And I was like,
That's
got
why
it.
I
I'm
said
on it. I'm
that's
so on it.
thank you. That's why I said
Okay.
that. Anyways, no, but I just love the like and then we find out too that this is where the Court of Nightmares is what Amarantha modeled under the mountain as. And
Yeah.
I love that she thought she was being like, oh, look at me, I'm like taking like the night court and I'm replicating it, now everyone has to deal with it, when that's actually like not, the people in the night court don't even know about this place. And this is truly where the night, like the Rhys, the High Lord of the Night Court, this is where he lives. He does not
Right.
live in the
Right.
Court of Nightmares. Like, he's up here. This is where Morgan and like they're all there. And this is also where she meets the rest of his inner circle. Cassian. Oh, Cassian, Azriel, and Amren.
Yeah.
Oh,
And that
and
includes more too. And
yes,
they're just like this little chosen family. And
I know.
okay, so Sarah J. Maas, I think that this is her niche, is creating secrets in her
Yeah.
books that only like a certain character and the reader know about. And it makes you feel like you're in on it. And so,
Yeah.
and
I
this is,
felt like
I
I
feel
was a
like this
part of
is,
the inner circle.
yeah,
As
I
an
feel like this is
extension
a
of Feyre.
common theme across her books is you're in on this secret that nobody else
Mm-hmm.
knows. And eventually, the world starts to figure it out, but you're there from the beginning. So you feel like an
Mm-hmm.
OG, which gives you this feeling of like, I knew it.
A chip on your shoulder.
Yeah. So I just love that Valaris was like our thing, us and the inner circle, and that's it.
And I'm just going to say this. I feel like this is a good time to do this since I just brought her up. But they've explained the other characters, like what, like Cassie and Azriel. They're Illyrian. They have wings. They're also very good looking. Great. Then Morgan, we have already seen her. She's beautiful. She's his cousin. Cool. But this is the first Amren. This is the first introduction of her.
Yeah.
And when they explain her as being shorter than everyone, because she's not technically high fae, I realize that the high fae are taller and bigger than humans are. But in my head, they still look like humans. Like, they don't look bigger. So when they said shorter, I pictured her being short in human standards, not fae standards. And then when they also talked about her haircut, which is like a short, dark, like black bob, and just coupled with her personality of being very direct and everything, she has always been and will always be Edna Mode in my from The Incredibles, in my mind. And you can't convince me that she isn't at this point, because I want to challenge anyone that's listening to this to not think of her character and how direct and like her, how she talks, and just picture her speaking with how Edna speaks. Say her lines in your mind how Edna says her minds. It is one and the same. She just needs to make super suits at this point, and I would think that Sarah J. Maas ripped off The Incredibles.
Cassian, I always like, well, until I really started looking at fan art of the inner circle, I've always pictured Cassian as Emmett from Twilight. And I didn't like it because I was like, ugh, it's so obnoxious.
He had long hair.
Yeah, like Emmett with long hair. I don't know. But it's like that energy, like that brotherly, spunky personality.
He is like the comedic relief, and I think Emmett was attempting to be the comedic relief in their family, so I can see it.
But how he looks is like a young Jason Momoa, I think. But how I just kept picturing him is Emmett. And honestly, Azriel, like, I have a picture of him in my head, but I'm not even going to try to describe it, because I just feel like when I do, then it's like, that's not what I'm trying to say, and that's not how he looks. So
I know that he doesn't. I always pictured Azriel having long hair too, and I think it's just because I pictured, like, because Cassian has long hair and they're both Illyrian. Even though, like, hair isn't like I don't know, it's not like a trait like that. I pictured all Illyrians had long hair, like, in my head. Like,
yeah.
So he has like darker, he's more like emo in my mind.
He is more emo, for sure.
Well, he definitely is more emo though, even the way she explains it. But he looks like he has paler skin and like darker hair than Cassian, but they both have long hair. And they're both very shredded in my head.
Very shredded. Agreed. That we agree on.
Yes.
Okay, so then the group really takes to Feyre easily. And Feyre, I mean, this is after a few days, and so she's really starting to see Rhys in a different light. He's been so kind. He's been so hospitable. He's introduced her to people who actually care. So again, you kind of have this side by side of how Morgan has been treating Feyre with wanting to get to
Versus
know her versus
exactly.
Ianthe, who was like, I'll just handle it. And so you're
Exactly.
kind of like, oh shoot, that's what a
This
true
is
friend
what a
is.
friend exactly.
Yeah. And I
Exactly.
loved that side by side. I thought that was
And that
awesome.
immediately is when I stopped second guessing more.
Yeah,
I was like, okay,
for sure.
she's legit.
So then, the lovey-dovey feelings are great, but then Rhys is like, all right, time to get down to business.
Mhm.
We need to learn more about the war. And so Rhys takes Feyre to the bone carver. What did you think about what they found out?
Well, first, I was just so I think I was a little bit confused at this point.
Hmm.
Not really. Like I was following, but it wasn't this part wasn't as monumental to me as I think it was or like actually was intended to be written. Like
Hmm.
they're explaining the prison and they're explaining but they don't really explain what the bone carver like who he was or like what he did. So I'm just like, okay, like he's in prison. Prison is bad. I get that, but like I don't know. I didn't get the significance of going to see him, so I don't think I really took any of the scene as like
Sure.
significant. But that's me
I
probably
just
nodding off
pictured
while I was reading it.
they were really describing him as like a very scary creature. And obviously he did some bad to be in a prison that
Yeah.
intense. Like no one escapes from this prison. It was
But for him to
super
present himself
intense.
as like a little boy, that's where I was
Yeah.
like, okay.
Well, so he presents himself differently to anyone who sees him.
Well,
So to
yes, but we are
Rhys, he
going in from
was
Paris, we are going in from Feyre's
right.
perspective, and so we don't know. I don't
Yeah.
remember. He doesn't tell Feyre what he saw him as,
No, he
right?
did. He
Oh, I
saw
didn't
him
remember.
as Jurian. And so,
Oh, yes, I
yeah.
forgot.
So it was ultimately, I don't know. The bone carver told Rhys that Jurian is meant to be raised and reborn, and he's using the eye that Amarantha kept. And so the
Yeah,
King of Hybern is piecing together a cauldron, which is a massive magical weapon with unknown power, but it's powerful enough to shatter the wall. And there is essentially an antidote, which is a book that's in two pieces,
yeah,
and half of it is with the mortal queens, but they have to willingly give it over. The Fae can't just go in and take it. And then the other
yeah.
half is with the High Lord of Summer.
They don't
Any thoughts on all
Oh,
that?
yeah, they did know, yeah. Well, yeah, okay, so obviously this is a lot of information. I think it was so much to me that I was like, "Okay, I knew this was big, but
Hmm.
I didn't take it I took it at face value, not for, 'Holy crap, this is gonna actually turn into, like, the next
Yeah.
2 books,' like."
Yeah.
But, it was I think it I wasn't sure how they were I thought it would be easier I wasn't as concerned with, like, the Mortal Queens needing to give it to them because in the back of my
Hmm.
head, I'm like, "Yeah, they're all on the same side of the war 500 years ago, why wouldn't they want, like, to help?" So to
Hmm.
me, that didn't seem like that big of a deal, but, um, I wasn't sure and again, like, I wasn't sure, like, where the summer cover was coming from because I would think, again, this should be pretty easy to get the books, like, no one wants to do war again, and clearly that's, like, what it's turning into with
I thought
what
that
Hybern's
too.
saying.
Yeah.
So I'm like, "Okay, yeah, they're all gonna want to give us the books, and then we'll,
Right.
like, hopefully not have to fight." That's kind of so, I mean, knowing what I know, but, that's what I thought at the time.
Yeah. Um, no, I was exactly the same. I was like, well, obviously everybody doesn't want to enter in this world shattering war, so they'll all be game,
Exactly.
but not so.
Yeah. So then after the Carver, we go back to the Mortal Lands for the first time since Feyre's turned High Fae. And they talk with her sisters about being like a neutral meeting ground between them and the Mortal Queens. Do you think you'd act more like Nesta or Elaine in this position? Nesta being more angry and Elaine being more reserved.
Okay, first of all, I will, I think, never resonate with Elaine because, oh, such an eye roll. She's so, I'm sorry. I'm sorry if like you love her, but she's so, I always
Camilla.
say if she was a spice, she would be flour. She is just so whatever.
Yeah, that's I she added something that needed to be there with how strong of personalities Feyre and Nesta have, but that doesn't mean I liked it.
I literally think she could have not written her into the story at all, and the story would go swimmingly. It would just go on.
Poor Elaine, man, she's getting crapped on.
It's
No,
just what it is.
I definitely would. I don't know. I don't know how I would act. I think I would be in between the two of them, honestly. I would not have been as straight up like vocal and nasty as Elaine. I
Yeah.
mean, Nesta was, but I wouldn't have been just like shy and scared and quiet like as Elaine
Yeah.
was either. Like I wouldn't she's like a helpless puppy in these
Ugh, don't I
in this
know it.
situation. Yeah,
Makes me
I know.
so
Which
mad.
I think her acting like that is obviously well, I know is what made Nesta even more Nesta than she needed
Sure.
to be too.
Yeah. No, I don't think I would be as angry as Nesta. I mean, in 9 out of 10 situations, I am about that angry. But I really don't think I'd be that mad because, one, my sister is with the Fae. So obviously they're not here to be
Yeah.
intimidating to me. Like, she just
I mean,
became
she
one
is
of,
Faye now
yeah.
though.
Well,
Yeah.
but she's still my sister. So I'd be like, she's obviously on our side too. She's not going to try to hurt us. And so trust can be
Yeah, but
given.
yeah, but Nesta and her were never really on the same side. So now, I mean,
Yeah,
I
that's
think
true.
I mean, she does. I think Nesta sees her as even being like less on her side now.
Yeah.
And I think to an extent, they don't touch on that. I think they obviously like touch on this more later, but it's like they are already barely felt like family. And now
Yeah.
she sees her sister with her sister's now completely different and with people that she's like
And
now
happier.
and
Yeah.
happy. Yeah,
I'm
and like
sure
they
she sees
all
that.
she can tell how much they care about her sister
Mhm.
and stuff like. And I think if I was like being as petty as she is, like that obviously makes her even more
Yeah.
angry too. But um then okay, we moved on. That happens. Then Rhys starts to train with Feyre and help her discover her new abilities. How were you feeling about him at this point in the book? And what were your thoughts on Feyre's healing process?
So we didn't mention this, but when they were with the bone carver, in order to receive that information from the bone carver,
Mm,
um, Feyre had to give up some information about herself, and I think she alluded to the fact that she was ready to die, but felt like a reason to come back or something like that. But it like allowed
because
Rhys
he
to
was
have,
asking, yeah, he was asking about like because she was explaining what happened under the mountain, and he was like, "Why did
yeah,
you come back?"
right.
Yeah,
Yeah, and like what did death feel like and all that. And so
yeah, he
Rhys
wanted to know.
saw that she was genuinely ready to give up. And I think really felt for her and like saw a more sensitive side of her. And so
Hmm.
and then just we did mention that they're training together. Yeah. So him training her, him bringing her to Valaris, meeting his family.
Inner circle.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I feel a lot better about him. I'm like, man,
I
we
know.
had him all wrong. He's so sweet.
I know. No,
And he cares about her a lot.
I can't remember when I started like really liking him, but I can
Hmm.
only imagine that it had to have been during
Yeah.
this part too. However, I will say can't say the same for Feyre. I don't again, maybe unpopular opinion. The beginning of this book, she was I had empathy for her. I really did. But at some point, I'm like, okay, then work on it. Like I just felt like she was so I don't know. I'm being harsh, I guess, but like I was getting so annoyed with her being like, I'm having bad dreams and I'm so sad. I'm
This is so
broken and I can't heal. I
disrespectful.
know. That's what
No.
I'm saying. No one's gonna pity. I'm gonna make enemies from saying this out
Oh,
loud. But that's how I felt. I I really did. I had so much empathy for her and I wanted but it's because I wanted her to be better. I'm like you have the opportunity. You have someone who's willing to help you and you just keep pushing him away. Like but I know that that's
that is your
is a
Enneagram
normal
8 coming
response.
right out right
It
there.
sure is and it's also the pot calling the kettle black cuz I can act similarly
Oh, yeah.
as she did when I'm in like a situation where my mental health isn't like the best, but
Mhm.
reading it, being an objective third party person reading this, I wanted to just be like, can't you see that he's trying to help you? Like, just let him help you.
What's that, like, there's a line in a movie that's like, "Can't you see I'm trying to help?" But I don't remember what it is.
Gosh, I wish
I don't remember who
I
it's
am.
from.
I'm the worst at quoting movies, and it's really embarrassing considering who I married and his family. They are
Oh,
all like such Zeke minored in film. Like
yeah.
they're movie people, and
Oh,
all of them.
yeah.
His brother and his sister and him, they have so much fun just like quoting movies, and I'm just sitting there watching them, and I'm like, couldn't name it, couldn't tell you unless it's Elf or like The Incredibles. I'm like, yeah,
Which you've
one
already
time.
referenced The Incredibles today, so
I
you have
know,
one
and
elf left, and then that's it.
the only time I'm really outing myself here, but not really because this is a fantastic movie. The only time in our marriage that Zeke has ever quoted something and I got it first try without having to think of it was when he quoted Gingy falling, or not even Gingy, in Shrek 2.
Shrek 2!
The big gingerbread man going, falling backwards. And he quoted that, and I was like, oh, yep, Shrek 2. Got that one in the bag. That is the only time I've
All
ever
day.
been
I
able
could do
to.
this all day.
That is, I need a, and I keep saying I'm going to work on it. And I don't. I don't know. That stuff doesn't stick with me. I wish it did.
Little fun fact for all of our listeners. Shrek 2 is my absolute favorite movie of all time. Anyone who knows me can attest to that, and I can
I
quote
can.
the absolute entire thing. So,
Yes.
but
There
have
it
you
is.
ever done like have you ever made a stupid joke or like said something
Yes.
really dumb and then everyone's kind of
Always.
like looked at you and then you're just like, you never seen that movie?
Oh, I wish I
I
played it
pulled
off
that
like that.
I do that. Like, you guys haven't seen that?
Couldn't be.
Too bad.
Wrong
It's
crowd.
a good movie.
No, that is a story of my life of just saying I'm like, this is gonna be really funny. Watch this knock 'em dead, and then say it, and everyone is just so
An
quiet,
absolute flop.
and I just have to eat it. Like,
Yeah.
yeah, I think I'm really funny in my
Yeah.
head, and then something doesn't translate the same when it comes out of my
It don't
mouth.
come out that way. No, one night I just was like, I'm on a roll tonight, and then I just went too far where it was like, that is not funny. Even I was like, oh, like stop. And
Oh
then I just
man,
kept
that's the worst.
going. And I was like, stop. That was the
That
worst. That was
yeah.
not a good night. All right. So how did you feel about Rhys at this point, at the end of these chapters?
I think he was definitely growing on me at this point.
Mm-hmm.
I wish my memory is not great. I wish I could remember the exact moment when I was. I mean, it happened so gradually though too. Like, and I think that's kind of the point. But I wish I could remember exactly how I felt like the first time because it's never the same when you reread it because
I know. You know
you
what's
know how
happening.
it's gonna end, and so I could sit here and be like, I now looking back, like if I were to reread it, I would some of the things he did early on that I was probably like, that's not in line with what I've seen from him so far. Like
Mm-hmm.
I would also be like, I love that he's so sweet. So,
Mm-hmm.
but I do think I definitely think at this point I was like, at least at the very bare minimum, I was like, all right, this guy's not who we thought he was at first.
Mm-hmm.
But I think by
Yeah.
the time he showed her Valaris and everything we learn about that, I'm like, okay, he's really like laying his cards on the table here. Like,
Yeah.
and we didn't mention this, so I forgot. Like, after he shows her, he's like, you can like, please don't tell anyone, because like
Yeah. So he trusts her.
yeah, and that's why I was like, oh, okay, that was cute.
Mm-hmm. And
I
then
definitely would. I definitely liked him at this
it gave
point.
her like something to guard too. That
Yeah,
not only did he trust her, but he's like, you have to protect it essentially. So
exactly.
I love that. Yeah. Because
Yeah.
Tamlin, you're starting to see the polar opposites between Rhys and Tamlin. Tamlin was like, I don't trust you with anything. I don't trust that you can take care of
Exactly.
yourself. And he's like, right off the bat, here's one of my biggest secrets. I'm trusting you to take care of it.
Yes, you touch on it. Yes, you're right, Tamlin. It's not just like I don't trust you. I also don't like I don't trust you enough to even let you take care of yourself is kind of
Mm-hmm.
like where the direction he was heading in.
Yeah.
Yeah. This is good. I think we should probably stop here though and then
Okay.
pick up in the next episode because I could keep talking about this, but I loved this book. I'm
Yeah.
so excited to talk for the next one. Next book, can I say it?
You may.
The next book, or next episode at least. I mean, we're going to talk from the point we're at now through chapter 54. And everyone said, Amen. The mostly will be about chapter 54. And so I'm telling you right now, if you have not already read through that point in this book, first off, what are you doing? Second
It's
of all,
such a breaking point. I love it.
Second of all, you just don't look anything up. Don't look up anything online. Ellie told me not to look up any fan art from the beginning, and I'm so glad that I didn't because it will absolutely ruin everything. Just keep reading. You have to, and just at least get through chapter 54.
Yeah, and
before
also,
the next episode. But I guarantee you, once you get there, you won't want to put the rest of the book down.
It's so true. Guess how I learned to tell you to not look up anything, any fan art or anything.
You spoiled it for yourself.
Ruined it
for
me.
500, please.
I'm my own worst enemy. And it's it's me I have to live with.
It's your inner dialogue that you have to deal with.
All right, well,
thanks for listening with us.
Yeah,
subscribe, leave us a comment, share with your friends.
But if you
mentioned this last time.
Yes, if you share Instagram, I have learned that we don't see it unless you tag us in it. So tag us in it, and then we'll give you a shout out at some point in this podcast.
Because we are recording in advance. So eventually you'll get a shout out.
Eventually you'll hear your name. You'll be like, I knew it.
There it is. Mm-hmm. No, we are. This is fun though. I'm having a lot of fun. I don't know. I hope you guys are having fun listening to it. Yeah. Tell everyone about it. I mentioned this last time. My mom is reading these books because I told her to. And Sean is currently, I don't know where, she's at least halfway through Court of Mist and Fury as of this recording. Yes.
All right. She can listen along.
She sure can. She'll hopefully be. I think we're going to pass her up at some point, though, with where she's at in these episodes. Okay. But yeah, she loves it. She thought the same thing I did with Feyre in the first half of this book, by the way. Mm-hmm. So Sean's thoughts. Maybe we should have a Sean. We could have a Sean's thoughts since she's like live reading it. See what she's.
Yeah, one direct maybe we'll see. Sean every episode.
Yes, every episode. I'm gonna get it from her. I'm gonna get one from her tomorrow, and it'll be in our next one. Okay,
right, well, have a good week.
Yeah, and we'll see you next week.
See ya.